So it should be live now. Let's just make sure that everything's working properly and we can get started. Looks like. Yeah, so it looks like we're live now. So just wanted to, I guess, welcome everyone to the stream this evening. I don't think I've been on here the last week or two, maybe. Just been busy with some other stuff. But this week I have, one of my friends on, I guess I would say, and I just kind of met him online, like in Discord, and we've talked a lot about stocks and investing and kind of related financial topics. So just wanted to have him on as a sort of just kind of explore, his investing strategies and sort of how he got involved in investing. So I guess if you want to give any sort of introduction that you want, more than welcome.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Zaro7. I invest in crypto, stocks, and real estate. Crypto, I got started back around 2013. Stocks, I started 2019, and then real estate, I started last year. That's really all I can think of for an intro.
Yeah, so I guess we can start with like crypto and like how you got into that. Like what like where did you hear about it, or what prompted you to kind of get into that?
I think back in around like 2013, 2012-ish is when I got into it. I was a broke college student, so I was trying to find ways to make money online. Oddly enough, so I started stumbling on digital currency. Like that was a thought I had at the time, and I found the original Bitcoin forum and started mining it back then, just before the first generation ASICs came out. So that was back when you could actually mine Bitcoin with like a GPU. I missed the CPU boat on it, but yeah. So I've been mining it on and off ever since then.
That's cool. So like did you see it, I guess, as like a way to make money? Did you see it as something that was really going to like grow very quickly, or was it just kind of like a thing on the back burner for you?
At the time, like I'll be clear. At the time, it wasn't really profitable at all to be mining
Yeah.
on a GPU. But I wasn't paying for electricity, and I had the hardware. So I thought it was kind of cool. One of the interesting things about it I found was the decentralization aspect of cryptocurrencies. And like, if you know the history of the internet's built around this whole idea of decentralization. So I thought it would be, it could have a future, but I didn't imagine that it could have been like where it is today. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess what are your thoughts on like Bitcoin now compared to other cryptocurrencies? Like, are you still uh, do you still own Bitcoin, and are you like owning it for the utility per se, or more like the um, value, I guess, of like the fact that it's the original?
I still own Bitcoin. Um, I still own quite a bit of Bitcoin from those mining days. I own it because I use it for one. um, I have used it for purchases. It's super convenient, and just for like remittances overseas to family in other countries, other continents. Like it just makes it a lot easier. The fees are a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
But also now I'm holding it because of the value of it. Like there's because of the people effect, the network effect. It actually
Yeah.
does have an intrinsic value.
Okay. So you're involved in other cryptocurrencies? And
Yep, yep. I also hold ETH, Solana, Matic. Um, those are the main ones which I hold right now.
okay. And you got into like the helium mining, right? As
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah. I can't believe I forgot that one. Yes, the helium mining. So that one is interesting. Like, you were there when we were first starting our dive into helium in a Discord.
Yeah.
Um, that was like that one. I could see the same. I saw the same sort of potential as I did with Bitcoin back then, because now it's a cryptocurrency that actually has that's tied to an actual real world utility, that like utility, right?
Yeah.
um so I saw the same kind of potential, and so far, like, it's off the highs now, but all the cryptocurrencies are off
Yeah.
the high. But I'm pretty happy with how it's been performing so far,
Yeah.
overall.
Like how do you like hear about stuff like this? So you're just kind of always looking, or I guess it's specifically like with helium, because at least like when you were first brought it up, it was like not nearly as developed as it is now. Like I think right now there's over like 700,000,
Hmm.
hotspots or miners. There's like definitely less than 100,000
Yeah, I
when you
think
were
I
first
think
talking about it.
I think back then there was maybe 10 or 20,000 hotspots.
Yeah.
So the network has exploded. As for how I find it, like, um I do a lot of searching online for upcoming projects, and I follow um, a couple YouTube channels as well, which are dedicated specifically to like cryptocurrencies. Um,
Okay.
and that's generally how I find these projects. Of course, like, I don't jump on every project that YouTube brings up, because sometimes
Yeah.
by the time it shows up on YouTube, it's too late. But
Yeah.
uh, do I?
That's a good question from Zach. Like, how do you like if you are looking? I guess that implies like you've come across a lot of other ones that you haven't really gotten involved in. So, what are you? How are you? Uh, like, what is separating some of them from the other, like Helium or Solana? Actually,
Um,
let me turn on the light.
right now, the main things that I look for is, does this seem to have a future that coincides with the nature of the internet? Um, is it something that can be built into a platform? So, like, I stay away from all the meme coins, and there's a ton of videos about meme coins, and um, I find those are kind of poop. But
Yeah.
it's actually looking for a real case value. Like, I don't think anything at this point can truly replace Bitcoin. Like, there's other coins which have faster transaction times or lower fees, but Bitcoin now has that public knowledge, right? Whereas other ones, it's like, why would I jump to this if everyone's using that? It already has that mass effect sort of value.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense.
To avoid the possible rugs, those are more like, if the people have revealed themselves in the project, that's a lot easier to identify. If it's going to be a possible rug pull, like, if there's a public name associated, is that public name tied to a LinkedIn? If I search for that person's history in a business, can I find it? um those are the main ways of looking for like rug pulls. And then they have services online that help you identify if things have been audited, like certain dexes, stuff like that. They will actually audit it.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. It's actually like um, it's like incredibly easy in general, I guess, to create like a cryptocurrency. It's not like
Oh, anyone can do it. Like I think there's even
Like,
services where you don't need coding knowledge to create.
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's actually quite interesting.
So I don't recall. I'll send it to you later when I remember it. I don't recall off the top of my head, but there
Yeah, that doesn't
is.
surprise me, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not really positive what Will means. He said this volatile. Does price performance influence about how you feel about a crypto? I guess maybe he just means like from a um, like store of value perspective, but I'm not really
Um,
sure what he means by that.
Not really. Like if it's a coin that I have a high conviction in. So the main ones that I have high conviction in are Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana. Matic I see as like a stopgap that can be, easily phased out if ETH does the right things. Um, but the price performance doesn't really bother me because, like, if you look at the price history of Bitcoin, um, I think back when I first got into it, it was just under $7 a coin.
Yeah,
Um, and that was not the first time it hit $7. It crashed. It hit $7 before I got into it and crashed like almost completely, and then climbed back up. And then if you look at I don't know if the history on like Google shows that back that far, but it climbed to $100 once, crashed back down to like 20, then it went up. Then there was that big run up where it went up to like about 1,000.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the
I
price
think like
performance. Go ahead.
I guess like my understanding is in general it's been like less volatile from like a percentage point of view. Like if you look at a chart, it doesn't look less. It looks much more volatile now, but that's sort of just because the numbers back then were so much lower. Like $10 to $100 is from like here to like 400,000, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the same. Like
It's the same
uh,
feeling. It's
yeah,
like percentage
exactly.
wise, it's very similar.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, so like the thing that I'd be watching out for is because like right now we're in a very unique environment with how bad inflation is. Inflation has never been this bad throughout the existence of cryptocurrencies.
yeah, that's
So
true as
I
well.
would expect a lot more volatility moving forward in the space.
Okay. How do you like? What effect do you think inflation has on cryptocurrencies? Like, do you think it
Well,
would like increase their appeal? I guess.
I mean that's a hard question to answer, right? Because like Bitcoin isn't inflationary.
Yeah.
Um, ETH is supposed to be deflationary. The fear I have is with the rampant inflation that's going on. People will pull out of cryptocurrencies to those that actually need it. They will pull out of cryptocurrencies to satisfy their real life financial obligations.
Okay. Yeah,
That's where I lean towards it.
it's definitely a valid concern for sure.
And then
Like,
those with money, they'll buy the dip.
yeah, and then that's just like sort of I don't know, but in general, it's probably not a good thing. Um,
I think it'll be interesting. Like, I don't want to I don't have a crystal ball that tells me like BTC and ETH and Sol will do amazing over the next two
yeah,
years because I I've never experienced this kind of environment with those assets. And these assets classes are still very new. Like some people say they're digital
yeah,
gold, but then if you look at it lately, the cryptocurrency space has tracked more with I think the Nasdaq than it has with gold, which is a little bit interesting.
yeah. It is interesting. This is a good question. Are you still buying Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin, I get most of my exposure to cryptocurrencies through mining. So in a sense, I am buying because I'm dollar cost averaging in every day. But my own financial situation and planning doesn't really leave too much for me to actually buy tranches of cryptocurrencies. Um, I have my original cash stored on a hard wallet, yes. Um, so right now I have my assets split. What I mine goes into services like Celsius, Nexo, BlockFi, and then what I have originally has gone into a hard wallet.
Okay, that's cool. This is a good question too. Do you have like a overall exit strategy, or is it like a just gonna keep on going?
They're making it easy for us. um, so the the strategy for Bitcoin that I have is I will leave it, and then if there is um, if there is a need, an immediate need, and there was an immediate need like last, right, uh, where I will sell a portion of it. But um, for me, it's mainly just hold. And then, if I see something I want to buy and they accept Bitcoin, I'll probably use a bit of Bitcoin.
Okay, it's interesting. I that's something that like is funny to me because a lot of people are just like, I wouldn't say a lot of people necessarily, but there's a fair amount of people that are just like, don't sell, don't sell. It's like you sort of have to have like some sort of plan or like thought process to like what you're gonna do, or else it's just like, well, I'm just gonna, you just want to like hold this till you die, or like what's going on there? And that's how I feel like some people kind of um,
Oh, for sure. So,
like
like,
having that like one dimensional path is like, yeah, that's
well, I
sort
mean,
of good, but at the
I,
same
I,
time, it's
it's good for making the capital gains, right? Like, and seeing those
yeah,
numbers go up. But you have to ask yourself, it's like, what are you accumulating this for? Like, for me,
yeah,
it'd be nice if I have kids one day to leave them some Bitcoin.
yeah,
But um, until then, I'll hold on to as much as I possibly can. But sometimes you just have to. You need liquidity, and it, Bitcoin. Back when I started, it was like, well, the value comes from you being able to use it. But if everyone just holds it, then the value, yeah, it'll go up because no one's selling it. But then it's hard to also develop the actual use case that you're supposed to use
yeah,
this, right? So like there's that story of the guy who bought a pizza for 10,000 Bitcoin.
yeah,
I think now that's worth a couple billion. It's worth over a billion, right? So I mean, like
yeah,
I think he regrets it a little bit, but that story also helped really spread Bitcoin. It gave people a like, hey, did you hear about this guy? He spent like $2 billion on a pizza. That's nuts, right? So it's like
yeah,
you have to use. I think you have to use it.
yeah. That's a fair point. That's sort of like where I'm at. Like, I don't see Bitcoin as having like a ton of like utility compared to other cryptocurrencies. Like, you can definitely like buy and sell stuff for Bitcoin, but it's not like there's not like a ton else to it, I guess. Which in some degree is like good, right? Because it's just kind of simple. But
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well, I mean, like it was the first cryptocurrency. Well,
yeah,
right. So I mean, like,
that definitely
uh,
has weight.
yeah, it's nice now. Like a lot of these cryptocurrencies, they have actually evolved into whole platforms, and you're seeing the technology behind it, the blockchain tech, not necessarily
Yeah.
the encryption part, but the blockchain part being integrated more with um, just technology in general now. Like you're seeing it as a valid way of actually doing it. So that's where I find cryptocurrencies interesting.
Yeah. And what is like the? I honestly don't know a lot about other cryptocurrencies. What is the like um, purposes or like use case of like Solana, or like where is its value at?
So the use cases of Solana, it's very similar to ETH, but the
Okay.
fees are much lower and the transaction times are I think much faster. I think I wrote a thing in our Discord that compares the different transaction speeds of Bitcoin,
Okay.
ETH, Solana, and Solana is like 10,000 transactions a second or something like that. Like
Okay.
it's ridiculously fast compared to ETH.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess moving on from crypto, I guess okay, we can this is a good like transition question, I guess, into stocks. Which is better, mining Bitcoin or receiving dividends?
Oh, that's a
If I
hard
had
question.
to
That's sir.
if I had to guess, like I would guess that the present value of dividends you get is probably greater than uh, like any mining you get from Bitcoin, at least in like the current value, you know.
Yeah, so uh there is definitely a rush I get every time I receive dividends. Like the mining, it's very slow, steady trickle throughout the
Yeah,
entire day, right? So it's not so it's just
yeah,
like, oh cool, I'm earning X cents every hour or every
yeah,
second. It's great, but dividends, dividends.
yeah. So what? When did you start? I guess venturing into stocks, and what was like the catalyst for that? I guess.
Well, actually, that's a great question. Um, I started venturing into stocks. I think it was like May 13th or May 19th, 2019.
Okay.
The catalyst was I was going through a really difficult time period in my life and had to take some time off of work to try and address these issues. And one of the things that I started focusing on during my time off from work was uh, how to make money online again, how to make passive income. Excuse me. And stocks was the way. Like it was staring at me my entire life, but it's only at that moment when I was like, okay, so I'm off work. Um, I ended up being laid off that job during my leave of absence. And I was like, okay, now it's especially important that I have some sort of alternative income stream, and dividends was the way.
Okay. Cool. And so, uh, what was your like? I guess what was your learning process for that? Was it just like a lot of researching stuff online, similar to, you know, cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so for the most part, it was starting. I first started looking at ETFs, and then because I'm Canadian, our market's a little bit different from the US and our tax laws are different, right? Like I didn't want to put up with a 15% withholding tax for US dividends,
Yeah.
um, because at that point I was really strapped for cash. I needed every dollar I could get. So I looked at the Canadian stock market and I was like, okay, I know nothing about the Canadian stock market. How do I start? Start with the easy stuff, ETFs, right? Get a whole
Yeah.
bundle of stocks, you should be safe. But then when I started looking at all the different ETFs they had, I noticed something that was a little bit odd. And it was the large majority of ETFs all had the same companies and they were charging, anywhere from like 0.1 to like 2.5% MER, right? And I
Okay.
was like, wait a minute, if you guys all just buy the same thing, like why am I paying you guys? I what I will do is I'll look at what you have. If it makes sense, I'll unbundle your ETF and just buy it myself and save the MER. Um,
Yeah.
that's something that you can do easily in the Canadian market. And then now, and then after that, I started looking for other communities and going through like Investopedia, um, found, a Discord which shall not be named. Um, and that's where I met everyone. And then it was just finding a bunch of people who were passionate about investing and who had a genuine interest, and like I learned a bunch from them. um like shout out to, if I can name drop two people, um like Lawboy Maurice. Like
Yeah.
they taught me
Yeah.
some really fundamental things about learning how to evaluate companies.
Yes. I will second that.
Yeah.
And there's definitely more I can learn from them.
Yeah, like a lot of, and it's not just them, it's like a whole bunch of
Yeah.
people who have helped me learn, but it's also putting in the effort yourself. No one
Yeah.
wants to handhold all day.
Yeah. What so I know you like use sort of to some degree use margin, and I definitely don't know a lot about that. So kind of like what is your thought process there and how do you go about
Oh,
doing that?
that's actually a really good question. I was wondering if you're going to ask me about leverage. So I don't use like a bank margin account. So I don't have risk of margin call, but I do use
Yeah.
leverage, right? Um, and I chose a really I think interesting, because when I looked online, I was like, no one's doing this, and I can understand why, because like once I say it, it's like I bought half of my stock portfolio using credit cards. People will be like, "What the hell?
Yeah.
What do you mean you used a credit card to buy stocks?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." So the thought process behind that is, if you can figure out um, uh, how to make it worthwhile, the credit card gives you a time limit that where the way I did it, anyways. You get charged the interest up front. There's no interest to carry it. But if at the end of the promotional period, you get charged interest. So you using that, I figured, hey, you know what? I can take advantage of this. Like 2% is like nothing for a loan. And then I have other vehicles where I can transfer the balance to, or pay it off, or even pay it off partially. And then the dividends which I receive are enough to carry or pay off the remainder if I want to.
Okay.
And then after that, it's a lot of math and numbers of ensuring that you beat not only the interest rate, but typically you try to beat inflation as well, so you have a real yield on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so like are are like most of the credit, I guess, that you're drawing on for these investments at this point, is most of it like at 0% interest and then you kind of like transfer that over when that's done? I mean, eventually you got to like pay something, I would think, right?
Um, Funny story. Okay, so I have I can actually do the math really quick. Hold on. I think like outstanding right now, I have about 27,000 on my credit cards. Um,
Okay.
and then I also have the home equity line of credit. That one has an interest rate of 2.7%, which is going to rise to 3.2 tomorrow. And then I have a line of credit at 6.59, which is going to rise to 7.09% tomorrow. We have an interesting rule in Canada. I think the US might have similar, where if you take a loan and it's used for investment purposes, the interest becomes tax deductible.
Okay.
So and this is typical. The amount it gets tax deductible is I think tied to your tax bracket. So for me, the real interest rate isn't 2.7%; it's like 1.8, and then for the home equity line of credit. Um,
Okay.
the strategy with the credit cards is I will transfer it to the line of credit. I'm actually in the process of doing that now. Um, and I might pay some of it off, or I might just carry it forever because my bank has offered me interest only payments on my lines of credit. And I'm like, all right, cool. I don't.
Yeah.
I have generated an infinite return with someone else's money, and I never have to pay this back if I don't want to.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I guess like I would definitely have to do like a lot of thinking and like crunching the numbers, which I'm sure you did like before I would
Yep.
do that. But
It's very high risk, but it's high reward, right? Like,
yeah.
I know what's his face, Kiyosaki, Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh yeah.
He gets a lot of flack, but I was watching one of his videos, and he said something really smart when he was doing his investing course, or his when he was a student doing real estate investing, and he took a course, and the the guy who was running it was like, "All right, I want you to go buy a house, but don't use your own money." And then he went out and bought a house with a credit card for the down payment. And I was like, wait a minute. Like granted, that was like what, like 40, 30 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
But the concept can carry over today to stocks. It's just risky.
Yeah.
It's very risky.
Okay. That's cool. Uh, as Milan mentioned, you were involved in GameStop. What was
Yeah.
what was your like thought process there? Did you just see it like as a quick quick way to make some money, or were you like, I don't know, what did you think was gonna happen there?
Um, when I went into that trade, I was fully prepared to lose all that money. Um, that's first and foremost. um,
Yeah.
the what made me go into it is I was looking. I remember looking into it and being like, uh, the short squeeze is in the middle of being triggered, but it hasn't fully been realized yet. But it's going to be happening. I think that was the actual day where they did where they froze buying it to stop the short squeeze from
Okay.
happening, right?
Yeah.
So um, I decided to go in, try and make a quick game. I didn't care how much, I just wanted to make a quick game. So I was, it was a very, very quick. I, I think I traded, yeah, I traded quite a bit on it. Um, I wouldn't do it again though, because that was honestly a little bit, that was a little bit much. Like that was my RSP entire basically life savings that I threw into a into a YOLO play. I would not do it again, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It's just
Okay.
too risky.
Yeah, I was just like um, listening to like a podcast the other day when I was working out, and someone was talking about they were uh, in like AMC and they had put like a buy order in for like, I think he said like 60,000 shares at like $3, and then but it was like after market, and then like overnight he like got scared or something and put made it down to like 6,000 shares,
Mm,
which I mean that's still a lot, but
that's still a lot of
it's just kind
money.
of funny.
Well, I think one of the key things that I learned from my parents, like my parents, they've been with me throughout my investing journey. So like, and we talk a lot, and they're like, it's okay if you don't make the biggest gains in the world, just don't lose money, and
Yeah.
don't get greedy. Greedy is how you
Yeah.
give up whatever gain you've made. Like think about it. If you make 10,000 bucks a day off of a single trade, yeah, you could make 20,000, but do you normally make $10,000 a day? I don't know about you, but I don't make $10,000 a day. I would be happy making 10,000 in a single
Yeah.
day, even 5 grand. Like I'd be like, yeah, sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the don't lose money thing you mentioned is like, to me, when you think about it like mathematically, it just makes so much sense. Like
Mm,
because if something drops like 50%, right, it's got to go up 100% or to
yeah,
break even.
yeah.
And
It's that and
like
like
that, like when I realized that,
yeah.
that's just like that was like a sort of perspective shift, I guess, for me.
I mean, that's exactly it. But and then the other thing is like, oh, you're still young. Like you hear this all the time, right? You're still young. You can
Yeah.
take risks to make the gains. It's like, and if you lose the money, you have time to make it back. But think about it from the other side, right? You are ahead by this much
Yeah.
at such an age. When you lose money, you have to spend the next while catching back up to then so much time catching back up, and then so much time outperforming what you where you should have been just to get
Yeah.
back to where you should be, you know?
Yeah. And also like being ahead like a little bit from the start, like that little bit of being ahead like compounds like so much down the
Oh,
line.
definitely.
And um, they sort of like talked about it in the, or I guess they illustrated it well, like in the, oh, I forget what it's called now. It's about like it's called Outliers, the book about like, I don't know, there's like the sort of famous analogy of like or example of like, like all like the vast majority of, the best baseball players are born in like August or whatever. The vast majority of the best hockey players are born in January, I think. And like in like the sports, if you're just a little bit better, then you're going to get placed on the better team, and you're going to practice more, and you're going to have a little bit better coaching for like
Mhm.
a year. And then if you're at the top of that bracket, then you're going to have even better coaching and even more practices. And that's just like compounds, so that someone who's like just a little bit better at age like 7 or 8 is able to like improve so much more over like 10 years.
Definitely. It's that and the little gains that you can make over time, like even if you're not the best at every single thing, what I've found works really well, especially at the gym, is making small gains as often as you can, because those small gains compound really quick. So like if you can
Yeah.
only lift like 5 pounds doing something, and then next week you lift another, you add 5 pounds on top of that. The week after you add 5 pounds on top of that. Within a year, like you're one of the strongest people
Yeah.
in the gym.
Yeah.
That's a real life story. I like when I started lifting, I was weak sauce, and that's exactly how I progressed. I just added 5 pounds or even 2.5 pounds every single week, as often as possible to everything.
Yeah. This is a good question about like books or other things that kind of like changed your perspective, I guess, or made you more interested in like your financial well-being.
Was there a book, movie, or video that opened my eyes to being financially independent and acquiring assets? Um, there's none really that come to mind off the top of my head. It's not like I started reading to figure out that I wanted to become financially independent and acquire assets. Um, what I do know is when I was a kid, I was really entrepreneurial. Like I ran shops, I did lemonade stands, I did whatever I could to to earn a little bit of money. And then unfortunately, I didn't carry through that practice because I partied a little bit too hard in my 20s. And then when I started to reach my 30s, I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be the way to go, because like I'm kind of over the corporate 9 to 5. There's a lot of stuff that you got to put up with, and it's like, why do I have to put up with this? I don't want to put up with this. So no,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
there's
makes
no real
sense.
book that inspired me.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess is there anything else like related to stocks that's like haven't talked about? So you were mostly investing in like dividend stocks, right?
I'm almost entirely in dividend stocks. I think the one
Okay.
non-dividend stock I hold is Palantir, and I have like one share.
Okay.
um, what I find with investing for the dividends is it offers you the flexibility, right? Because I can take that cash flow from the dividends and I can reinvest it directly, automatically, on drip, or I can reinvest it manually if I find a good opportunity, or I can do sneaky things like buy, like take out 45 grand at 2% and then use the dividends to pay and basically create, use the dividends to pay the loan back by itself.
Yeah.
um like uh so that's why I primarily chase the dividends. Like I don't chase yields. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was close to it, but it was, it's just the sneaky financial things that you can do with having constant cash flow.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point, it's just like what you're comfortable with and most knowledgeable about. So like it makes sense just to stick with that,
Hmm.
and kind of be in that sort of area of expertise.
Yeah, like it's, well, I mean, the other thing which I've noticed is like when you call banks and ask for like credit or stuff, and they ask you like how much is your income, you can include dividend income in your gross income, and then they just give you more, and it's like, oh great, this is great, you guys are giving me money to you guys are giving me free money, this is awesome. Quote unquote free. It's not free, you have to pay it back
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
point, but you know what
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. That's cool. So I guess real estate, you want to talk about that?
Yeah,
What
sure.
has been your experience with that? I guess like, yeah, been your experience with that?
Okay, well, I'm from Canada, right? And
Oh, wait, wait,
uh
wait, wait. Time out.
yeah.
The one
Yeah.
thing I wanted to say about stocks is, isn't there something in Canada where some companies you can like drip at a reduced price or something? Is that a thing?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, that is a thing in Canada. A lot of companies have taken that away over the
Oh, okay.
years, but I believe there are still companies that you can drip and they give you a discount to the share price. Usually it's like 2 to 5%. It's not crazy, but 2 to 5% discount. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like think about how many
Yeah, that's
days,
something for sure.
like it adds up. It adds up really quick.
Yeah. Does that like apply to any of the companies you own?
It used to. At this point, I don't believe it does.
Okay. All right. Sorry, real estate. That was just like
Okay.
something I was thinking about that I wanted to mention.
Actually, that was a really interesting question. I didn't expect that, but I'm surprised you knew about that. um, so with real estate, just some background. Like, we moved a lot when I was a kid. Like, it was like every 1 or 2 years. So I got to move around all over Ontario. And I got to see a whole bunch of different properties and places. And I got to learn both just from observation, but also just seeing places develop over time, like what what helps to make a property good value, right? And one key thing to keep in mind, like how the U.S. you guys had your financial crisis,
Yeah.
like back in 2009 ish.
Mm-hmm.
That never happened in Canada. If you look at Canada's
Mm.
economy, it's like we never had a financial crisis. So everything just kept going up, 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 up. Um, there was like no recession. Yeah. So yeah. So with real estate, I mean, like, what do you want to know about it?
Like, I guess, how did you, like, what made you want to purchase real estate, I guess, instead of
Oh,
just, for example, like dumping more money into stocks or something like that?
uh, well, one thing is we have a couple tax credits that you can use. Unfortunately, I didn't. Those weren't applicable to me because it wasn't my first home. Like it's not a home that I'm living in, so it's not my primary residence. It was
Yeah.
a investment property. But what really made me want to get into it is one, we the prices were good at the time, so we started shopping right when the pandemic hit. Um,
Okay.
and then we bought in an area that was depressed because of the pandemic because their local economy is dependent on oil and oil was down the gutter at that point.
Yeah.
So they were very depressed prices. And the third thing that I really wanted real estate for is that it would give me access to a home equity line of credit so I could become a degenerate. I could leverage up to the to its like bill line.
Okay. That's cool. So, I guess like what you have like some sort of rental property, right? What's the deal with that? Is it like an apartment?
Yes. So I have a condo in Alberta. It is my first property. We put 20% down. Um, Currently, the market rent is slightly below market rent, but the lease is up this September, so I'm expecting a rent increase. Um, Willers actually helped me learn a lot about this. He put the formal term like capex and stuff like that, and helped me figure out. It's like, okay, like what kind of capex? Like, is this capex good for the kind of property I'm buying? He's like, oh yeah, 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 or like
Yeah.
yeah. And then we have some other properties as well. Like we have a place in Malaysia, and then the property that I currently reside in.
Okay. Was that place in Malaysia like something you've owned for a while, or was that recent?
That's been for a while.
Okay.
I think about 10 years. It's going to ultimately be a retirement place for my parents, and where
Okay.
it's located is it's located about 15 minutes away from the border crossing to Singapore,
Okay.
and then they're building like so you can walk from where the building is literally to the border crossing across the
That's
bridge.
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Okay. Cool. So like has I guess in terms of like your investment property, have there been any like big problems you've encountered, or has it been pretty straightforward?
I use a rental management company to help me manage it.
Okay.
Um, they are I've had some problems with them. One, like they didn't advertise my property for like 2 months, so that's 2 months lost rent. And I'm like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah.
um, Also, the person who was doing the inspection didn't inspect the property like thoroughly, and they ended up calling an electrician because the tenant was like, so since we moved in, the lights above the counter haven't worked. They called the electrician in, and the electrician was like, you don't have light bulbs in here. And then on the actual bill, the electrician was like, try to test for current, but requires a minimum load. And then they billed me $170 or something like that. I'm like, so you came in to check for a light bulb and you're billing me 170, like it's stupid stuff like that. Like I'm finding like tenants are really dumb. They are really dumb.
That's
uh,
interesting. This is a good question if you uh, want to answer it. Like, how do you have the property structured? I don't even know how that stuff works in Canada to begin with, but um,
okay, so I think I talked with Willers a bit about this. Um, for Canada, we don't actually. There's very little benefit to structuring the ownership through a LLC or a holding company or through trusts, because a lot of the benefits, the government got wise to the fact that real estate and the tricky shenanigans you can do with it, so they removed a lot of those benefits. So my
Okay.
properties are held through a sole proprietorship at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. All right. Um, let's see. I guess something like we can talk about more is like how you like choose to allocate um like your income, I guess.
Mhm.
So are you like putting a lot of it towards investments or um like maybe like saving up for another property or like paying down debt? Like what does that look like for you? And
Um,
how do you make those decisions?
it varies. First and foremost, I'll say that I'll start with saying that I have a very high savings rate. Um, so if you can have a high savings rate, I think that's the most important thing to getting yourself a good foundation. Like no one cares if you make 100 grand a year if you spend 90 of that grand. Like you're
Yeah.
walking with 10 grand. Um,
Yeah.
my savings rate I think is close to 85 to 90%. Um, Last year I invested every single cent I could and put the bare minimum into my loans. Um, Currently, I am putting close to 70 to 80% of my income, my personal income, towards my loans. And then a small portion is being DCA'd into my employer group RSP, which is inside and I'm investing in a US dividend growth fund with that.
Okay.
I'll likely continue with just shuffling debt around and paying it down for the rest of the year while I figure out what's going on with the interest rates and inflation. Um, be and then at some point I'll likely re-leverage again um, uh, into property. Ideally, I'm looking for a market for a housing crash soon, or
Yeah.
I'll go into stocks. Either or.
Okay. And when you're I guess if you like whenever you do buy stocks, are you generally like dollar cost averaging in, or are you just like buying individual companies at individual times that you think is like a good time per se?
Oh, actually, that's a good question. That's actually a great question. So, my dollar cost average strategy, that's my drip. So whatever stocks I have where I can drip, that is my dollar cost average strategy. Typically, what I
And
do, yeah,
I think like for you, you have to like be able to drip a whole share, right?
yeah, we don't have
If I understand
fractionals.
correctly. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That makes sense.
what I have been doing is actually trying to target stocks which I think are either at fair value or undervalued. Um, that was really easy in 2020 when everything was undervalued during the crash.
Yeah.
But then what I noticed, and I'm sure other people have noticed too, but we just saw an entire economic cycle in like 2 years. And
Yeah.
we saw the sector rotations through it all, right? So like I'm not sure if you notice. Well, no, I'm sure you noticed, but like like tech went to the toilet for like the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, but the sensitive stocks, cyclically sensitive stocks, so like oil, the energy sector, utilities, the defensive sectors, they all went to the moon over the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Like,
right, yeah, that's what I'm targeting right now. Is sort of those sort of, oh, this area just is like crashing or under a correction. That's how I'm averaging in right now.
okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Like the utility stocks just always are surprising me, I guess, because like most of the time they're just kind of boring, and then it's just like the last few months. All right, let's just rally to all-time highs for like all these stocks.
Boring is good, right? Like, okay,
Yeah,
boring is great. I'm a little bit worried that the utilities have rallied so hard,
yeah,
but I understand why. Um, it's because there's fears of like recession or stagflation. And
yeah,
back in 2020, when I started investing, that's when I built the majority of my portfolio. Um, I was worried about recession and stagflation in the future, not at the immediate time, but in the future. And it's like my crystal ball's not that good, but like I'm feeling pretty solid about those choices right now. Like the leverage portfolio I started in August last year. Yeah, August of last year. Um, has survived the downturn and actually made gains while the broader indices were down. So like it's great that my credit card loans aren't costing me extra.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting stuff. And like, I guess in regards to the leverage, like for me, it's just like not something that I guess at this point I want to put the time to of like figuring all that stuff out.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know.
I wouldn't recommend it.
It,
It's very high risk. Like it's very
yeah,
high risk because if you lose, you not only you're not starting from zero if you lose, you're starting from a negative number if you lose. Like it's
yeah,
so I wouldn't recommend it to anyone really. Don't do it. Just don't do what I do. Um, but for it, but if you do choose that route, make sure you have your own cash flow. And you know, you're like I know you're still young,
yeah,
so like you don't have the kind of cash flow that
yeah, exactly.
the rest of us have. You know, so
Yeah,
not yet. Anyways,
yeah,
you'll be making like six figures soon.
yeah. That's like I guess my hesitation with real estate as well of what's
Mm,
like I see as like a big obstacle, is like I can, save up the money for a down payment or something like that, or
mm,
over some time. Like that's not like unreachable, I guess, for me.
mm-hmm.
But it's just the
How
like
to
having those
sustain it?
monthly payments
Yeah.
and like if I have to fix stuff or don't have rent coming in for a few months, I definitely see that being an issue for me at this point. So I guess yeah, that's sort of what I'm like thinking about in regards to real estate because
Well, if you go into real estate, I would recommend looking up house hacking.
yeah, I definitely like would consider that a lot or try to make that work probably. So
Like that would be the way to go. Like I get other people to
yeah,
pay for your mortgage.
yeah. All right. Um, let's see. So I guess what are your overall goals with all of this? Do you have anything specific or broad or
Oh, super long term. I'm gonna be chilling on a beach with a bunch of people that you know, overseas partying like it's 1999. That's the long term goal. Right now, the current goal is just building financial security and a solid foundation, and ensuring that my leverage can pay for itself. Um, Eventually, it would be to be financially secure enough to actually consider starting a family. Because in Canada, that's I don't know what it's like in the States, but in Canada, like that's really hard.
what do you mean by that?
Okay, so you remember how I said the financial crisis? It's like it never happened in Canada. Well, wages
Yeah.
haven't gone up along with our housing prices, but rent goes up with housing prices.
Yeah.
So I remember, I think it was 3 years ago. Um, I was earning around like 70 grand a year, and I remember looking at the cheapest place I could rent. It was like $1,500 a month, and then with car insurance, utilities, everything, I think I would only been able to save $20 a month. Um, so I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna work, you know. So it's and then with kids, it's so much more
Yeah.
expensive, especially with inflation right now. Like, can you
Yeah.
imagine having a kid right now? It's
Yeah.
expensive.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. I guess, is there anything else you want to talk about specifically?
Um, well, I see the new guy SC358 credit
Yeah.
card loans. Don't have to worry about margin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't use margin. What I did is I got a bunch of credit cards, and if you look for them, they're 0% balance transfer cards. They will charge you a fee up front, typically like 1 to 3%. Lower is better, and then there's zero interest for the balance of it. Um, that's what I did. Um, as for like other stuff that to talk about, well, I mean, I don't, I, I don't know, man. We covered the crypto part. We covered stocks, real estate. Um, there's businesses as well. Like, there's that. If you want to go into that,
Um, Usually I try to keep the live streams to like an hour, so we can. I mean, I don't know what what is there to unpack, so maybe we'll have you on another time to talk about that. But
all right,
I guess,
that sounds great. Otherwise, thank you for having me.
yeah, sure. Yeah, so we will see you guys another time, hopefully, to talk about your businesses. I actually didn't really know about that, so um, yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming along. And Zero actually does have a blog where he kind of talks about his dividend investing mostly, and kind of his, I guess he talks about his, mining a little bit and stuff like that. So definitely go check that out too. I think I have a link in the description for that. So I definitely appreciate you coming on and just kind of sharing, any your story and any insights you have. So appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Good luck.
Yep. Thank you. See ya.